in terms of from the start of your PhD towards the end, was there anything that you kind of learned about yourself, or things that grew from it that you sort of took away, or is there things looking back on it, is it that you would do differently, or is it all just it was a thing that happened at the time, it was a capturing of that thing, and then you move on to the next sort of thing?
I mean, I was really lucky in that where I did it, and my supervisor team, and just the general culture, and like my peers and everybody there were really fantastic in terms of there was no borders to what you could talk about or explore. Okay. And because you have a lot of people in the room who are really good at different things, talking in this way, it meant that you kind of find, and it's something that I find really interesting, and like sort of once I started like masters and above, where the sort of talking about what you do and talking about what other people are doing, you kind of start crystallizing your understanding a little bit more than when you first start off, where it's just like, oh, this is a thing, I've read a thing, and yeah, I know a thing now. Whereas now it's like, what is thing? And, and they start asking questions where like there's no answer to that, obviously, but like in asking that, you come to understand something about yourself and the world. So being in an environment, I mean, it sounds quite poetic and fluffy, but being in an environment like that meant that I could do that and find that, and even just so like my PhD was one of the first, I mean, it's not the first, but of like it there, I handed in no document. There's no physical PhD. It's just my webpage. And depending on how much you went through it, like the webpage does stuff. It doesn't like,
I thought that was, did you do all that?
Yeah.
Because I thought that was really, really interesting.
I had a friend help me with some of the heavy lifting of the coding there. But.
Yeah, because there's like the thing, can we pull up the website? There's, when I first got into it, it's the thing with like the strings, and there's like the different ways of looking at it. Yeah. What were like, there's like the 4 different terminology. Yeah.
So like if you scroll up a bit.
Is it quite linear, or can it?
No.
Did you have to give your adjudicator a map per se?
No. So like here, like if you click on any of those other buttons, you can view. So these are a lot of the chunks that I handed in as part of my thesis. There's those 4 buttons top left.
Yeah, where it says like temporal.
Yeah. Wow. So like you can view the same information in different ways. And all of this is such like if you want to read about that, you can click on it and go into the webpage for that and read about it. But I specifically made it kind of non-linear because that's what makes sense for what I was talking about. And so I tried presenting it in a way that the information was being presented in the manner that makes sense for the information to be presented, as opposed to even the language in it. I mean, like if you scroll at the top, like the first bit of text in my thesis is a story about me and how I would take a shower as a little kid.
I really like that bit. I also very much enjoyed the picture of you there as well. It's a wonderful picture. But yeah.
So, because I think it was important to set that as a tone, because I'm not a very stuffy person in how I do anything in my life, but like how I teach and also how I like do my creative thingness. So I wanted to embody that as much as I could in the thing itself.
Yeah.
And there's other stuff, like if you read into it, like don't want to do any kind of spoilery things, but like if you click on the thesis on the right, like there's a hyperlink on the right of the page, down.
Yeah. No.
Up. No.
Up, there we go. Oh, he'll have to like cast it on. Just give us a second. So you had someone helping you do
some of the code stuff. So if you go to the conclusion
at the bottom,
the 4th little yeah.
Give us a sec.
It's internet these days,
Oh,
God, that's a great picture. Right?
There we go.
So just scroll down for a moment.
Oh.
No, maybe scroll up. So this is kind of emerged, but as you scroll to try to read this, random elements on this page are replaced with the process. Which to the point where it will break, like this page will stop working, and it will just, and it dissolves. So like literally random elements are replaced. So at the moment you can still scroll, I think, but that might stop at some point. At some point that image might go as well. But but even things like this. So this one, so I finished the thesis and I wrote it, and it took me a while to do. Before I had my viva, which is what you do like at the end, like when you sort of have a a crew. I was going to say a team of people.
Your crew.
Yeah. And they ask you a bunch of questions. So I had a 6-month gap between. So I finished and then I came back and read it again. And I knew what was going to happen, but like having read the whole, it's really long. When you get to there as well, that makes sense in a way that was like very impactful. So I felt like even myself knowing what was going to happen when I read it again, I was like, oh. like words aren't supposed to do that. Text isn't supposed to do that. But it makes sense for what I'm talking about in there. Like the process takes over everything and blah, 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 blah.
I guess the real question is, did you pass?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, thank God.
I had no corrections.
Wow.
Nice.
Which is, or actually I had, it wasn't minor corrections. They had me change the text of the abstract to explain that it's a web thesis more clearly.
It's quite amazing to hear that academia accepting something like that, where the conclusion isn't words, it is more of a concept and more of sort of a show of a thing.
Yeah, and that's where I was very lucky with my school that like there were a lot of administrative hurdles just to make that happen. Because like you might say that in spirit, like, oh yeah, you do whatever you want. And it's like, oh, great, but it's got to be 20 minutes. You got to hand in a form, like they don't really mean that, but like this was that, but it meant that a lot of, so my supervisor was cool with it, but then, the administrators or whatever, like they're like, okay, so yeah, what do we put, what do we run through the like plagiarism system? And it's like, no, there's there's a lot of steps a lot of fights that needed to happen along the way that I had a team of people around me, specifically my supervisor, P.A. Tremblay, who I might have brought in for a workshop. A few times. So yeah, he fought a lot of those fights, just not out of malice, but just like someone in the library is like, okay, what do give me the thing, I need to put it on the show. Like, and it's like, no, there isn't, and actually to this day, like my thesis, it was very painstaking. I had to make an offline version of it. So sit on a thumb drive, which is harder than that sounds because it's a WordPress page site, meaning that none of the pages are static. So like if you click on a page, they're generated. So there's a script to kind of go all through that, but then things are linked and things that you saw. So like a lot of stuff is not necessarily visible to a lot of scrapers. So it was a little tedious to do that. And I handed these thumb drives in and they've just disappeared. Like if I go on the 100 Schools webpage, like it doesn't show up or anything. Oh. So yeah.
Well,
not even a link.
They've put it into some sort of safe to forget about, haven't they?
Yeah.
Throw it in the bin. Can't figure this out. Just put it down.
But yeah, I mean, in academia, I don't have the highest thoughts of academia because often I guess what people mistake for, I mean, this is a really broad statement, but what people mistake for intelligence is sounding intelligent. And that's often the opposite of intelligence. I think there's some really smart Einstein quote where like, if you can explain something to a kid, then you really understand it. I don't know what it is, but I kind of believe that, but more specifically, I think specifically with art and aesthetics, things make sense presented in a certain way, and me to kind of write in hoity-toity, so the art, is not relevant, and like it doesn't make sense, in my opinion, for art in general, but specifically for what I was doing.
And how do you, obviously, that having that opinion, how do you translate that across because obviously you do a lot of teaching yourself when you're working in like a institution like the RNCM or whatever, like how do you sort of get around that with your approach? Because obviously I think your teaching style is very, very different. It stood out to me when I was there. But yeah, do you have a sort of way of navigating around that?
I mean, just that really. I mean, like for some like the undergrad stuff, there were specific, like at the end you have to hand in 6 songs or whatever. Like there were these concrete limits, but what that was made up of, I tried to be very, very flexible with, and tried to also be kind of honest about that as well. And that like, because I think for a certain kind of student, not everybody, but a certain kind of student, it's like, okay, how do I get the A? And it's like, just tell me how to get the A, and I can tell you, but that's not what you're here to do, like. So thankfully, we don't get that many of those students.
Type,
yeah. I mean, they're fine as well. Like that. That's not a bad disposition to have in life. But I think it's better to kind of jump into stuff. And I think for most part, the students that did do that got the A, or the 70. Sorry for to translate here.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast to catch up on new episodes every week. Also, check us out on our Facebook and Instagram at RecRooms, where you can find out about our other exciting music series. We also have this and all our other episodes of the podcast up on our RecRooms YouTube channel for your viewing pleasure. See you next time.